My name is Bear Siragusa, and this is the Hunting Hound podcast presented by W Hunting Supply.
All right, Nick. Thanks for hopping on such short notice, buddy.
Yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate the invite.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. Yeah, I had a real good time talking to you the last time and talked about getting you back on here at some point anyway. And I had a podcast guest bail on me last second here. Actually, third time they've done it to me. So I think I might give that one up.
Yeah, I know how that goes.
Yeah, no, gave you a shout and you 15 minutes later, here we are.
Yeah, like I said, it worked out perfect. I was driving home and I was like, yeah, I'll jump on. I was like, wait a minute, I better check with the boss lady, make sure she ain't got plans for me.
That makes sense. That makes sense. How's your summer going? It must be hotter than anything.
I'll tell you, we're normally 80, 82 degrees in June. That's pretty common. We start for July, but the last week we were having 95, 97 degree days, which is, we don't get many of them anyway, but it's always, July, August before we get to there. And it was so bad there. I went to feed Hyde the other day and post all this stuff up on my Instagram and on. He's in the shade 90% of the day where I've got him set up at, which is good, and then in the wintertime, the leaves come off trees. He gets sunlight, but summertime, he's shaded pretty much all day. But I was feeding him, and it was just the air was thick with humidity, and it was stagnant. There wasn't no airflow, and he's just standing there panting. And there's only so much clean water can do. And so I went down to the local Harbor Freight, picked up a big old fan, and suspended it underneath a little metal cover there beside him. It's blowing inside of his house, blowing on him. So
good.
He's in high cotton now. Oh,
cool. That's good. Are there times where you need to do even more drastic measures to kind of keep the hounds safe? I've looked at some of the other setups, for some of these high desert guys who can get those intense heat, like Brett Bond setup and things like that. And they obviously have shade and things like that. But, I've been surprised what those dogs can handle just in terms of the intensity of the heat, and especially like down where you are, the humidity's got to be ridiculous.
Yeah, we get a lot of humidity. I mean, I'm pretty blessed where we live. We got a very even mix of all four seasons, so we don't have any really extremes on anything.
That's good.
And, my dog's pretty well acclimated to the 80 degree, even 90 degree heat. But when it gets on up there, if he'd lived in it all of his life, it might be different. So I have to watch him, but just shade. And I've got one of those insulated dog houses. I've had him in for about 2 years now. And even on the hottest day, you stick your hand in there and it's cooler. I guess it's keeping the radiant heat off of him, I assume.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, that makes sense. I think it takes sort of the extremes. Those insulated dog houses seem to take the extremes off of both ends. I've noticed that with the ones that we have here that are insulated. During the wintertime, you stick your hand in there and it'll be 10 degrees, warmer than an uninsulated house would be. But during the summer, it's the opposite. It's, a few degrees cooler than some of these other houses. And it seems like, I would think with the hound that between their breath and their body heat, that escapes through the coat, they'd warm it up pretty well. But I guess even that thin coat insulates pretty well.
Yeah. He seems to be doing fine now. I mean, we cooled off a little bit, but they're calling for those extremes again this week. But I think he's doing fine now. I mean, I was down there feeding him earlier, and I stepped in there to, empty his water bucket and give him some fresh water and stuff, and that fan was blowing on me. I was like, man, you about got as good as I do right now. Air conditioned truck.
That's excellent. That's cool. How is he in the heat? Just in terms of, does he go off his feet at all when it gets real warm, or?
Not so much, which I got him a little bit on my diet right now because he's putting on weight, which is definitely not good for this time of year being, hotter, but he don't tamper off of it quite as bad. But I definitely see a major increase in the water intake,
Oh, sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I've got some dogs here that once it gets real warm, I've got to work to keep weight on them just because, it can be a little bit like me sometimes, I get too warm and I don't want anything, it's like just food doesn't sound good. Water and, gallons of it, bring it on. But food is just not doing it for me.
Yeah. 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 One thing I've thought about, maybe you've got some experience with this, is when I posted on Instagram, I had a lot of people comment that I should try these misting systems. I guess they make them that fit on a fan just for dogs and stuff.
Okay.
You ever tried that?
I cannot remember having ever tried that. No, I've tried, gosh, I mean, I guess like I've tried them at like sporting events and things like that from like this novelty, and stuff that they sell at like novelty shops at the, I guess it was last time I saw one of those was at a Bon Jovi concert at Gillette Stadium. Way back when, which the Bon Jovi was awesome, but there was a band from the early 2000s that was really popular for some reason, because I thought they were terrible. Anyway, they opened for Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
And it was just totally different type of music, and the crowd was just not having it. Was it?
I haven't been to a concert. Well, I guess I went one about 4 or 5 years ago. The wife was dating. She bought me some tickets to some stuff, but
okay.
Yeah, I haven't been to a concert in a long time.
No, neither have I. It's been too long, actually. I was thinking about it. The Guns N' Roses played in southern Norway a few weeks ago. And I was eyeing that concert. I was like, should I go? Should I not? And I was like, no, I'll wait for something a little closer.
Yeah. So what's the weather like where you are, and how's the dog just handling it?
They're doing pretty well. Yeah, it's been an unusually cold spring for us. Things started melting real early. So the late winter was unusually warm, but then it just like never changed. So, it went from a warm late winter to a cold spring. And then the rain came, and, we got probably 3 weeks of rain. And now it's nice. It's sun's come out, and, we're up in the 70s, most days. And, the dogs can handle, that's well within what the dogs can handle. They're fine then. They're not even, they're within their comfort zone.
Right.
The Newfoundland, on the other hand, he's already dying out there.
Yeah.
He's, but that doesn't take much, put him in front of the wood stove in the wintertime and he's panting, he gets tired. But, we see some of the same things that you're talking about, increasing the amount of water that they drink for sure. And some dogs, on real warm days, like today was real warm, they'll go off their food a little bit.
Yeah. Something with this heat and stuff, I've noticed a lot, because I work outside doing landscaping and all, is just the whole general area, 2 or 3 counties around me. I'm seeing more and more snakes this year than I've seen in the last 10 years. I've killed 5 or 6 right here at the house that were,
really
snakes you didn't want at the house. And we pulled 3 or 4 out of the chicken coop, some black snakes, that were after the eggs. And I've seen some rattlesnakes run over on the game land over here. And so made me really reluctant about getting the dog out. I've took Hyde out a couple of times since the last time we spoke, just kind of keep him in the woods a little, but I'm like, dang, these snakes are so bad. I don't know if it's like that everywhere, across the country, or if it's your way, if y'all have a lot of snakes, but this year's, I'm really kind of scared about it.
Yeah, I can understand that. We don't have any of the real bad snakes, but we've got the common viper.
Okay. Educate me a little.
Yeah, like over here, we don't have rattlesnakes in any form. We don't have any of the cobras or anything like that. But we've got I'm not actually even sure that it is whether it is a Norwegian breed or not, or native to Norway. But it's a venomous snake. It's a common European viper or adder.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking it up online now. It's got a really unique pattern down its back and
It
everything.
does. It's kind of almost similar to a diamondback. It's got that kind of diamondback, and it's, if you get a good look at its head, I've seen a couple of them out here. They almost look like a rattler. They've got that real big triangle head that's real wide in the back, and
yeah.
And the thing with them is that, if they bite humans, it's not, unless you're allergic to them, you're going to be all right. You're going to be get a little bit of fever, but it's not much worse than, getting slammed by a yellow jacket or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But the dogs are really allergic to them. So
that's interesting, because just looking at this thing, it looks really similar, the pattern wise, to our rat snake.
Yeah.
But the head is different. From what I'm seeing here, it's got all kinds of different color patterns. I mean, there's like yellow, brown and tan, black and gray.
Yeah.
Man, it's kind of crazy.
And they're beautiful. They're beautiful snakes, but they're so venomous to dogs. The dogs, they'll bite them, and then the dogs will swell up and eventually die of asphyxiation or edema in the lungs. And so, I mean, it's a gnarly way for them to go. And there's quite a few of them out and about. But because it's been cooler here, we haven't had as many of them this year. I've only seen a couple of them. But yeah, I've thought about that a couple of times. Like it's another thing that here in Norway, it's something we need to think about with the common viper. But it's not. The dog, if you get the dog to a vet within the first 2-3 hours, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Give them a couple of days and they're going to be more or less back on their feet. Give them a week and, their liver and kidneys will be back to what they should be. And, their blood work is going to look good after about a week. If you get them to the vet real quick. But, you guys, you've got some pretty gnarly snakes.
Yeah, I'm not no snake expert, so I don't know. I can't remember which rattlesnake we have. I don't think it's the Eastern Diamondback, but I can't remember which one it is. But I've only ever seen one of them in real life here in the wild twice.
Okay.
But this year I've seen 4 of them run over, and that's like very uncommon to see. Now. Copperheads are extremely common. I had one dog before. It seemed like he got bit every single year, at least one time. Drilled down the throat, put them in the lot for 3 or 4 days, isolate them. They were fine. They get over pretty quick. I haven't had anyone hit by the rattlesnake around here that I know of. But now when you go down toward the east, different part of the state, get in the swampier land, you get in the cottonmouths. We don't have those up here where I live. But everybody I know who's ever dealt with cottonmouth said that it seems like a cottonmouth will actually come for you.
Right. So, yeah, I've heard that too, that they'll most of these snakes will kind of keep away from you, and if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. But I've heard the same thing about cottonmouths, that they'll hunt you down and mess you up.
That's just crazy a thing. But yeah, so I've been kind of reluctant to get in the woods with a dog just for that reason. Hide's going to be 8 next month, so everything gets harder on them as they go. But
right. Do you have like a snake bite kit for the dogs when you're out there? Like,
I keep the baby Benadryl. I keep the pill for them so I can push that down the throat. And then I can't remember what it's called. It's some kind of it's like a herb or something.
Sure.
That it's like a drawing thing. You put it on meat to tenderize the meat and stuff. I keep that as like a powder. I'll put it on the wound. Try to draw the stuff out until I can get them back home and everything.
Sure.
But, my wife, I haven't had one bit since she's become a vet tech, but, we have access to vets now,
right?
After hours if we had to. But it's never been a real bad issue. But I do keep a little thing with me just to kind of put the odds in our favor.
I think that's smart. Do you have anything else that you carry with you when you're out there? Like do you have like a first aid kit or anything like that? What do you got on you when you're out there?
Yeah, in a dog box, I just kind of threw together a first aid kit. I know there's companies out there that are making them, for dogs, but I just keep, some bandages, some antiseptic cream, stuff like that. like I said, the snake bite kit. And then I've also got one of those sterile staple kits just in case a dog was to get cut or gassed real bad. Haven't ever had to use it, but I've got that there too. And then of course I've got a few things for me, aspirins and ibuprofen and stuff like that. But,
sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
You got to keep that stuff at least in your truck,
I think so too. Yeah. I've got a pretty good first aid kit, with me. I work as a vet tech as well. So, I've got no excuse rolling around without a good one. I like to have, I've seen a couple of times where a dog is tangled with something where that something has managed to hit a small artery. And there's been a couple of times where I've been really happy that I've got just a couple of different sizes of those clamps, like those hemostats.
Yeah. Okay. So while I got you on here, since you're educated in this, experienced, if you're going to tell everybody out here, like you got a little 6x6 pouch that you're going to put together, throw in your dog box. Yep. What do you got to have for your dog?
Like the 6x6 pouch. Yeah. I would have a tourniquet. Just because, for a lot of different reasons, one of them being, I guess, snake bites. I would even consider, especially if you've got, a real bad one, or, the dog got bitten multiple times.
That's interesting because I keep a tourniquet in my truck for myself or a car wreck, but I never thought about using that on a dog. That makes sense, though. Yeah,
and it's also, a lot of tourniquets, you can use them for different things. If you've got a dog that busts up a leg or something like that, you can use it to stabilize a leg. I've actually done that before. So a tourniquet is definitely something I would have with me. Benadryl for the snake bites, absolutely. I like having that little staple thing. It's not really a staple gun, but it's like that little thing that you can push forward with your thumbs, that it's a surgical staple machine. I like having that just for the same. Yeah, I know whenever I get where I'm going to go, we're going to take that out and take those staples out and clean out that wound. But, right. With some of those big gashes, especially some of the stuff that these bear dogs get, it's so extensive that sometimes it's just to keep it from getting more dirtier, keep from introducing more debris. It's just nice to just close it up, staple it up, and just try and get them out of there.
Right.
So I would have a little surgical staple gun. They're not expensive, and at least over there you can get them most places. Most farm supply stores and things will have that kind of stuff lying around. Or even like your wife works as a vet tech. Even use one where they've maybe opened it up, a sterile one for an operation where they use 6 staples out of the 20 that were in there. And just have that there just for that sort of, big flap of skin that you just don't want to get full of garbage on the way out of the forest.
Right.
Other than that, I think those are honestly the main things. I've got a bunch of other stuff in there, but those in my mind would be the crucial things. It's specific to a first aid kit. I'm always going to have a knife with me, and I really do like to have a Leatherman with me. When I'm hunting, it's one of the few times where a lot of people carry them all around all the time. I would prefer to just have a Swiss Army knife in my pocket. I find most of the time that works for me. And if I need a pair of pliers, I'll go and get a pair of pliers. But the Leatherman is really nice because, if you get a dog that gets, something stuck in their side, a stick stuck in their side, or, a thorn stuck in their paw or something like that, you can pull it out.
Yeah.
And then I've got this powder it's like this clotting powder. Yeah. So if you've got a dog that's torn off a toenail or gotten a rip in an ear or, gotten bitten in the nose, you can take some of that powder on your thumb and just hold it down over the wound, and it will help the wound it's like instantly coagulates the blood,
Right.
and will help the wound from, to stop bleeding. Because especially things like ears and the nose, boy, they can lose a lot of blood. They can lose a lot of blood for a fairly superficial wound.
I'll tell you a story on that one. I know you've seen this, you're a dog man, but I had Hyde back in there, and we bet a mile back one night, and we treated Karen and knocked it out. And of course, as they do, I try to knock him out dead, but it had a little life, and he got a hold of his ear pretty good. Yeah, well, I didn't really get it bad. He just bit him one time on the ear, and we finished the coon off real quick. And I walked over there, and I was good. Reached down, pet Hyde, and he looks up at me just as happy as can be. He's grinning ear to ear the way they do. He's just so tickled to death. And there's a wound on the outside of his ear, and it must have hit that vein, the thick vein that runs down the middle.
Sure, yeah.
Every heartbeat, it was just like 3 or 4 foot just squirted shot. And I was like, oh man, it was scary at first, because I thought this dog's going to bleed out here in just a minute. I didn't realize how much blood was pumping through the ear of a dog.
Right? Yeah.
I didn't have anything with me at that time. I walked him over to the creek and reached down. Also, I probably shouldn't have done this, but I grabbed some mud and kind of pinched on it and tried to clog her up a little bit there, and it quit bleeding. I got to the truck. We used some bottled water and cleaned it off real good, But
sure,
I could not believe how much blood went through a dog, especially a hound dog.
It's the hounds are the worst. Hounds and Labradors are the worst when it comes to stuff like that. The Huskies have those upright ears, and they're kind of small, and they're they can bleed. They can bleed crazy too. A Husky, or I've had some Huskies actually start to get kind of anemic because they bled so much through wounds in their ears. But the nice thing though with a Husky ear is almost impossible to put a bandage on because it's small and right up on the top of their heads. It's a great thing about a hound is that and I've done this before, where they'll get a nick on their ear, and then I'll take a little bit of gauze or even whatever I've got lying around, even a sock, and put that between their head and the ear so that it's sticking out a little bit.
Right.
And then I'll take, whatever like another thing I would have in that vet pack would be that vet wrap, that stretchy stuff that adheres to itself.
Yep.
That's great stuff. Because I would put something behind that ear, do a couple wraps around that dog's head. Yeah. With, fairly loosely with that vet wrap, and then just kind of, keep track of it. Cause that's gonna stop that ear from, cause you've got two things with an ear. You're going to end up in a situation where the dog's going to lose a lot of blood really quickly. But also if they keep shaking that ear and it's already bleeding, you can very quickly get something called blood ear. And, if you don't, then you've got to lance that, because if you don't, the dog ends up getting cauliflower ear, just like a boxer.
Right.
But it can be really hard to treat. A lot of times you end up needing to actually surgically go in there and sandwich that back together and put a bunch of stitches like a quilt.
Really?
Sort of back and forth over this big pocket of blood. Yeah. Just that it finally heals and doesn't have the room to fill up again.
That's great. I've never heard of that in a dog. So that's good to know. And, for the people that's listening to this stuff, you're talking to, this is all stuff just to triage or transport the dog to a vet, as they go home and throw them in the lawn and leave them alone after that. Just get you out of the woods type stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think, and that's a good point. That's something I think it's definitely important that we remind people of. This is not the solution to your problem. This is how you get to somebody who can solve your problem.
Yeah. You're the first responder, not the surgeon.
Exactly. And I mean, it scares me sometimes, like, on all these different forums and pages and things, and you'll have somebody come up and, say, hey, my dog got, bitten by a rattlesnake, or my dog, collapsed with heat stroke, and, or something. And what do I do? And you'll get like one or two people who will come with very, very good answers. Like they'll answer and it'll be a good answer. I see like Becky Dwyer answers some of this stuff, and it's like solid answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you did everything that she said, you're going to be good.
Right.
But then I'll have other people who come on and be like, we'll pour some gasoline on it. And it's just like, oh, don't do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing with the whole, you get the keyboard warriors, keyboard doctors.
Right. And some of it's just, probably some old folk remedy that had some aspect of truth to it,
Yeah.
Pour gasoline on a wound, the gasoline's going to evaporate, which is going to cause the skin around the wound to cool, which theoretically would close the capillaries and, maybe help stop the bleeding a little bit. But at the same time, then you introduced gasoline into a wound. It's like
it's kind of like the major pain movie. You want me to take your mind off that pain? I'll just pour gasoline on the wound. You won't care that you got a snake bit.
Right, exactly. It's like the cure is worse than the actual injury.
Yeah.
So, but basic common sense, like if it's bleeding, put pressure on it. If the dog is not breathing, try and get it breathing again.
Yeah.
It's if the dog has a broken leg, try and carry it out. At least try and immobilize that leg with, a couple of sticks and some vet wrap.
Yeah. I tell you what, he had a dog one time, a little female, named her Ellie. I took her out one night and she was about 18 months old. And this was the first night she'd opened on track a couple times, but she was always, 100 yards behind the older dog. And this one night I took her out and she opened the track and she pushed on 300 or 400 yards ahead of the older dog. He opened behind her and she just slammed up tree. And I was just shocked. And I thought, here he come into her. And I thought, well, we're getting ready to find out if she's right or not. And he just sat down. Right. I walked in there, sure enough, there was a coon. And I was on cloud 9, and probably should have went home on that one. But we'll make one more drop. You know how that goes.
Sure.
And so we cut her again in another spot. And she went in there and opened the track. I mean, just blistered. I knocked the coon out to her previous to that. So, I mean, she was just wide open herself. Mm-hmm. And she went in there blistered and she just come up tree and just hammered. And here come my hound dog again. Well, he treed too. Well, I got to notice, and they were about 40 yards apart I think it was a Garmin 320 at the time.
Okay.
She was on the other side of the creek from him, but they're both treed. And I said, that's odd. I said, we're going to really find out who's accurate this time. Well, I come walking in there, and the creek bank was a straight drop off, probably about 10 or 12 foot to a little shallow creek, rocky creek.
Okay.
And on the side I approached was a big old paperbark birch, and it leaned over the creek. Well, my dog was standing at the base of it, treeing, and she had climbed the tree and went probably about 50 or 60 foot up it, and that was leaning over the other side of the creek.
Yeah.
And the coon was way on the very tip end. So here I am. I'm freaking out trying to figure out what I'm going to do to get her down. I'm trying to work my way around this thing, figure it out. Well, at that time, she loses her grip. I see her. She just dig her claws in. She looks down at me, and I see her roll off the backside of the tree. And I'm hoping and praying I hear a splash, and I just hear a solid thud.
Oh, man.
And land on rocks. So I jump down in there. My buddy bails off the side of the bank. We finally find her, and she's upright. She's moving, which shocked me. But when she came up to me, I could just tell look on her face. She was not right,
Right. She was messed up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I knew right then, even though she was walking, everything looked okay on the outside. We were probably 3/4 mile in there, and we had to cross the mountain to get back. I just picked her up and put her on my shoulders, and towed her out of there.
Sure.
And when we got her out, I went to the emergency vet, which is always expensive at 2:00 in the morning. 2 or 3 broke ribs, bruised kidney, bruised lung, bruised hip, but it wasn't broke. And there was something else, but she was laid up for 2 or 3 weeks trying to recover from that. But it's one of the things that she probably could have walked out, if I had made her, but you just gotta have to read your dog.
Yeah. I mean, and you never know with that kind of thing. I mean, I remember when I busted up my back I hit the parking lot. I fell off the roof, hit the scaffolding on the way down, and then hit the parking lot. I was immediately up on my feet, like instantly up on my feet, and was like, I'm fine. And just started walking circles. Was like, I'm fine. And I mean, obviously was not fine, but I was up, I was walking. I was like, I was, that was my first instinct. And I've seen it so many times with dogs, a dog gets hit by a car or kicked by a moose or something. And, their first instinct is to try to get back up on their feet. And, these hounds are so tough. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
And, especially with an impact injury like that, you almost have to assume that there's going to be some internal damage.
Yep. Gotta be.
So that was a good call doing, handling that how you did, even though she probably could have worked, in hindsight, she probably could have walked out of there without any, major issues. You never know, you carrying her out of there might be enough from keeping an internal bleed from getting worse as her heart rate goes up.
Yeah.
Or moving her legs around and pumping, continuing to pump blood through, a damaged body, or even, where, you've been seeing this before where, a dog will, absorb an impact and its bladder will rupture or its stomach will rupture.
Yeah.
And, the less that dog moves around and sort of like, blends all that crap into the rest of their intestines and stomach, the better it's going to be. So, yeah. Oh, that's scary. Did she ever go back to climbing trees after that? Or was that a one time, like, I'm not going to do that again?
She never climbed one. And I can't say we ever had her on the opportunity to climb. I mean, that was just the perfect tree for anything could have climbed it.
Sure.
She went on back to treeing and she made it to about 3 years old. She was a really good tree dog. And then she just started, she went crazy. I don't know what it was. She started slate treeing really bad. I remember I took her hunting one time, my buddy Kim, we went down to Gilliland, South Carolina, and I walked behind her, like within a couple hundred yards. I stayed behind her for 2 solid miles. I mean, we crossed 2 rivers and everything. What it was, I'd cast her, she would tree. I'd go in there with slick. I'd correct her, send her on, like go find the right tree,
Right.
And I did that for nearly 2 miles. I think there was 11 trees. Okay. But by the time we crossed 2 rivers, we were not on the original coon. I mean, we just couldn't have been. Finally, she treed a small coon in a cypress tree that she probably saw. You probably could have seen it. It wasn't 20 foot up.
Okay, just like shot that pure layup.
Yeah, had to been. Definitely wasn't what she started on at the truck.
Right.
Because we were hours into this hunt at this point. And I took her several times after that. She kept sleep treeing. And then my buddy Kim, he's one of the best houndsmen around here I know. Yep. And he's like, well, let me take her for a month and let me work with him. I said, okay. So, he would take her 4 or 5 nights a week and he'd send me videos. She was doing the same stuff. And like through that course of that month, she treated 2. And, like I said, she'd be in the hunt 4 or 5 nights a week.
Right.
And then she got to where he would cut her and she would turn around, go right back by him. He was 300 or 400 yards in the woods off the road. She would hit the gravel road and just take off in a dead run down the road. And I have never road hunted this dog. This dog would never get cut on roads. I don't know what she thought it was about the road. And he'd have to run down there and jump in her truck. And, she'd be a mile away before he finally caught up with her. So,
oh, man. What it was. How long after the fall from the tree did she start doing this kind of stuff?
It was months later. Like I said, she was 18, 20 months old when she fell. Yeah. And she was pushing 3 years old when she started going a little crazy.
Okay. So
I don't know what it was.
Yeah, but, it's hard to say, man. If it was not long afterwards, you would almost think that, maybe she scrambled her egg a little bit when she fell out of there,
Yeah.
But at the same time, such a long time afterwards before she started acting that way, maybe some scar tissue developing in there or something like that's strange. How did that end up Did she ever get over it, or just kind of keep being crazy?
I don't know if she ever got completely over it. He called me up and he's like, man, I can't fix her. I don't know what to do, And I said, do you know anybody, a kid or whatever, who might want her? And he knew a kid down this church that was trying to get into coon hunting, and we was honest, told the boy what she was doing. So you want her, you can have her, So I gave it to him. It's funny because some of the listeners, the coon hunting listeners, may know Hardwood Elvis Attack out of Waddy, Kentucky. He was a pretty famous walker dog.
Mm-hmm.
She was the last litter off of him and the last female to be sold out of that litter. I went up there and got her. So, I mean, that was, I think there was another litter after that. They had like 2 or 3 males that survived the birth. But so she was the last female that ever come off him.
Wow.
And so I don't know. The dog was, I heard people tell me, the male, the Elvis was like 12 or 13 years old whenever her litter was bred. I don't know if it has anything to do with it or not, but you never know these dogs. All I do know is I've had her, and then I had that Nick's dog that I talked to you about last time I had to let go.
Yep.
So here the last 5 or 6 years, I don't have a good track record trying to raise female hound dogs.
Yeah, I mean, and that's actually something I've been talking to a lot of people about recently. Is that I brought it up to Brian Phillips, and I brought it up to Clint Buckwalter, because both of those guys run beagles, and both of them run exclusively females.
Really?
And it's something that I've seen over here. You can pay, what would that be? $3,000 for a female beagle puppy.
Okay.
But from the same litter, same parents, everything, a male is going to cost you $2,200.
Why is that?
Yeah,
they prefer the females.
People prefer the females. They think that they're easier to handle. They're not going to be banging on their bodies as badly. They've got more sense. They think they're smarter. There's like a bunch of reasons why people prefer the females, to the point where now people are asking, there's a fairly large difference in what the asking price for a female pup versus a male from the same litter is at this point.
That's interesting.
And it is interesting to me because it's like a bunch of people I've talked to in the hunting world, over here, but also over there, have said the same thing, whereas with Huskies, the males are going to be what the premium, the big burly males. That's what most people are going to want a lot of, so it's, but I'm the same as you, I don't have, I prefer the males. I've had some amazing females throughout the years, but they seem to be sort of the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not a them problem. It's a me problem. It's full blown that I do better with the males than I do with the females, and, there's, I can understand why, especially a trialing beagler, or somebody who's doing a lot of these night hunts or things like that. I can understand them not wanting the male that's going to be distracted by the one bozo that brings the female in heat to their cast. But, at the same time, it's like, then you've got twice a year, you've got that female in heat.
It always lands right in the middle of like opening week or something.
Exactly.
For me, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got 365 days a year, if I've got a dog sled race that's going to take up a day and a half of those 365 days, I can guarantee you that I'm going to have half a team full of females that have just come in the heat. Yeah.
I think one of the issues I've had with the females, and I see it myself, and I've tried to kind of fix it, but I find myself being a little more strict on the males, and not in a bad way. Just I don't let as much slide, and I push them a little harder, possibly because I just assume they're built. I subconsciously I have found myself going easier on the female when it comes to stuff. And I'm thinking, well, that's probably not the best to train one, you know?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You know, and there is something subconscious about that. You know, it's the same as, you know, with you know, nieces and nephews and things like that. You know, and my own boys. You know, I'm gonna much more likely to not be cruel, but it's much more likely that I'm gonna look at them and be like, when they do something dumb, be like, hey, that was dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Let's why don't we try that one again? You know, whereas with the girls, I'm going to say something that if you sort of break it down to what I means about the same thing, but I'm going to say it in a way that's going to be a lot, you know, maybe a little bit more, I don't know, sensitive. I don't know what you would want to call it. You know, something to the effect of, hey, well, that was a good try, but let's maybe do this next time. You know, and it's the same with the female dogs. You know, it's you know, the males, I'm going to be like, you know, get out of there. Come on, you big idiot. You know, whereas the girls, it's going to be like, you know, VHP, it's going to be like, come on, babe. Come on. Yeah, that's a good girl. Yeah, there you go. Come on. You know,
that's like, you know, I found myself whenever she first started sleep training, you know, if I was a male, I'd go in there and, you know, either use the e-collar or take my hat and kind of give him a whop and say, let's go, you know, let's get off that tree, you know, go on hunt, real stern. Right. Or I'd go in there and just kind of take my back of my palm and bump her on the butt and say, yo, you know better than that. Come on. You know, it's like, that's not really going to achieve what we're trying to get across here, you know?
Sure. Yeah. I totally understand it. Yeah. It's, maybe we figured out why you and I end up with males.
Yeah. So it's going to be males for the duration, I do believe. Now, you were speaking of beagles. I've been seeing your pictures on your Facebook and Instagram. You got that beagle pup now, right?
I do. Yeah.
And how old's that thing now?
Oh, he is 15 weeks, 16 weeks old, maybe. No, not even that. 14, 15 weeks, I guess. Yeah. And yeah, he's funny. That's a funny dog. Beagles always have such huge personalities and such little bodies.
Yeah.
And he's no exception. So, but he's getting big now, which is nice. You know, he's
right.
I'm a little less worried about, you know, stepping on him or having one of the other dogs knock him down. You know, when he first came here, it just like sort of weirded me out how small he was.
Yeah.
You know, he kind of felt like if he fell off the couch, he was going to kill himself, you know?
Yep.
But he's doing well. You know, I spend a lot of time out in the forest with him, just letting him sniff around. You know, I've got a bunch of game trails and things like that out there that we'll walk along and just, I'll take the time and let him explore things. And, you know, he's not, you know, for every day that we're out there, he's going a little bit farther from me. You know, pretty soon I'm going to need to put a like a bell on him or something, just so I can kind of keep track of where he is. But you know, he seems like a good boy, and his nose is really good. So I'm hoping those things translate into some, you know, natural ability. As a hunting dog, you know, but it's so young at this point. You know, there's things he's doing that sort of point in the direction of positive things. You know, it's like, you know, his. I was walking. It was actually yesterday with him, and usually when I take him for a walk, the cat follows us for some reason. And suddenly the cat stops, crouches down, and then just goes flying off into these ferns, and up flies a spruce grouse.
Okay.
And flaps off and lands in another group of ferns. Well, Mike sees the beagle pup sees this happen, and then, you know, runs over to where the bird flew up, and then I can see him like winding as he's walking, you know, sort of trotting along, winding, and then he opens up for half a second, just like one, and goes smashing into the ferns, and up flies this grouse one more time.
Bird dog in the making.
The birding beagle. Yeah. No, so it was, he's got stuff that he's doing that I like to see. What it'll turn into, you never
You plan
know.
on using him to rabbit hunt, or what are you gonna do with him? I want to do it.
That's a good question. The great thing about beagles over here is that you can use them to hunt everything. There's so many rules over here, and what you can hunt, what you can't hunt, when you can hunt them with dogs, when you can't hunt them with dogs, the size of the dogs you can hunt them with, and even the type of dogs, you can hunt them with. So like bear, we can't hunt with anything that other than a Spitz type, like these, Norwegian elk hounds or the Swedish elk hounds or the black elk hounds, so we can't hunt them with hounds at all over here in Norway. You can't hunt roe deer with a dog if the dog is over 16 inches at the shoulder.
Okay.
And and you can hunt moose, but the dog can't hang on the moose. The dog can't, there's a bunch of different rules, but the beagle can hunt almost anything. I don't think they technically can hunt bear because they are a hound, but I don't know if I'd want to drop a beagle all by itself on a bear anyway.
Right.
So
but you could do them. I mean, a short enough beagle, you could do them roe deer with it.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm leaning a little bit towards, because there is I do hunt roe deer anyway. I try to take one or two a year anyway, because they're great, they're good eating.
Yeah,
and it's been the issue. It's the reason I don't take more is that every time I'm out there, I'm watching other things happen, watching other things go by, and thinking, man, I should really be out here with a dog right now instead of sitting here, under a tree waiting for something to happen.
Now, what size do you think he's going to be for his size? Is he going to be pretty small or tall?
Yeah, I think he's going to be, my guess with him was that he's going to be 11 or 13 inches.
Okay.
Right in there. He's a little guy. His mom was real little. His mom's only 9 or 10 inches, I think.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of those 9 or 10 inch beagles there? And the reason why I asked my dad, he always loved those, and that's kind of what I grew up wearing.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say we have a lot of them. I've seen some of them. And the show beagles are going to be, a little bit bigger, a little bit more impressive looking. But he's not a show beagle, and doesn't really come even from show beagle lines.
Yeah.
His is a hunting line, and you can see the difference. He doesn't have the real big bones. He doesn't have his ears are a little bit longer than a show beagle should be. He's got he's got a little bit longer legs, a little bit more of a tuck in his tummy. He doesn't have that sort of seal like quality to him that some of these show beagles do over here.
Yeah.
And he's got he's actually his teeth are a little bit they don't line up 100% all the way in the front, which would apparently is an unforgivable sin in the show beagling world.
Okay.
Excuse me. So
good to know.
Yeah, I don't care about the beagle, the showing at all. But I think I would like to see what he does on roe deer, because that would be awfully convenient. It would kill two birds with one stone. I'd be able to get out with my dogs and fill the freezer a little bit more effectively maybe than I could hunting rabbits. But on the flip side, I was just down in southern Sweden, and there are rabbits everywhere. I drove around with a guy who had a thermal spotting scope.
Yep.
And boy, it was just like you turn that thing on a big field that had just been cut. It lit up like a Christmas tree. There was red dots all over the place. And I mean, on the way down there, I drove down there. It took me 12 hours to get there, so I can get there until about 2 a.m. The last half hour to get to where I was going, I hit 2. It's been years since I've hit an animal, and I hit 2 like within 10 miles of each other.
And that's somewhere you can go and hunt.
Yeah. Yep. So it's going to be a haul to get down there. But if I take him and if I want to get him on rabbits and hare, I think that's going to be the place that I go. I've talked a little bit about, not knowing how to get him started, due to kind of a lack of abundance here. There's plenty of them around, but it's not, it could be a few days between, good opportunities for him. Where there, it's going to be, good opportunities every 50 feet,
Right.
So I think I'll use them on as much as I can use them on. I've talked to some of the guys that do the NAVDA stuff. That versatile hunting dog stuff that, and that's, some of it seems a little bit gimmicky to me. Not, I don't want to insult anybody from NAVDA, but there's some stuff that I don't totally see the point in doing with, say, a beagle. But the idea of having a dog that where you've got a little bit of flexibility is interesting to me. I don't know how it's going to work in practice, and that because I see that there are some people that only run foxes, but then I'll see guys who will run bobcat and lynx and lion and bear.
Yeah.
With the same group of dogs. And that, obviously the dogs you've got dogs that are better at specific things, but where they can do it all. And I don't know if the difference, those things are all going to tree. I wonder if that's going to be, whether the difference between whether that's why it works because they're all treeing things, or whether I'm going to be able to get a hare and a rat and a roe deer, which are going to behave similarly once they're bumped.
Yeah.
Whether I'm going to be able to get him to do both of those things, or whether it's just going to be this total free for all where he chases the first and best thing he bumps into.
Sounds like he's going to be a bird dog to me.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. It's like his first good experience was on an old grouse. So that's going to be all he's about from here on out, I think.
So, here it is, June. When's like the season when you start doing some of that stuff?
I can train him now because he's a pup. So the leash laws apply, but I can, a little pup like that. Nobody's going to have any real issues with that. I think there's actually even a rule that the leash law doesn't necessarily apply to, a pup under so-and-so.
Okay.
Sold. So, but the hunting season will open up and the leash law will be, we'll be able to have them off leash again in the 25th of September is when the roe deer season starts, and at least in my area, when the hare season starts.
Okay.
I can hunt foxes from the 15th of August with a dog.
I got you. So, he'll be 4 to 5 months of age by the time your seasons are kicking in. So, that's a good enough age to get him out there and get him acquainted with it for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's another reason why I'm thinking maybe going down to Sweden. Because I think I'll be able to, I know that they've got some leash laws down there. I would actually need to look at that as well. But
now, are you literally talking about the country of Sweden?
The country of Sweden. Yep.
That's so cool to hear somebody. I'm just going to run down to Sweden real quick.
Yeah, that's right.
Go run some rabbits.
Go run some rabbits with the Vikings.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, son.
Yeah, it's and the place that I go there, it's such a cool place. There's a bunch of places I go in Sweden, but the place I was just at was that was a crazy weekend. My friend asked me if I would be a part of his wedding, and I said, "Oh, absolutely," and of course. And what it turned into was me performing the ceremony and making all of the food.
Wow.
Or most of the food for for the main course for 50 guests. So I made pulled pork and moose steaks for 50 people.
You just get more and more interesting every time I talk to you. I did not know you were, someone who could marry somebody and you're into catering. I mean, you just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I was this weekend anyway. I've never ever catered anything in my life. And I didn't do it this time. This was my gift to them on their wedding.
Right. Now, how did you get roped in doing the ceremony? I mean, if you got some kind of license, or you just like, I'm gonna do this?
They just asked me to do it. They were, at first he asked me if I would be his best man, and I said, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then his wife was like, well, what about your son, or his now wife? She was like, well, what about your son? And he said, okay, they can be co-best mans. And they thought about that for a little while. And he's like, it really should be my son. I was like, it absolutely should be your son. I was totally on board with that.
Yep.
And he said, but I want you to come down. Maybe you could be the master, like the toast, the master of ceremonies, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
I said, sure, absolutely. I mean, don't feel like you need to find a job for me, but I'm going to be there anyway. And, he and his wife called me together and we're like, okay, we've got a question. It's going to be crazy, but we hope you say yes. And asked me if I would do the ceremony.
So were you like the fill-in ceremony, like I'm the fill-in for the podcast this week, or is it like
no? This was the plan.
They literally didn't do a good job planning it, or what?
Right. No, this has been the plan for the last 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so and I love to cook, and I especially love to cook wild game. And I didn't really know what I was going to get them. For you want to do something for them for their wedding and stuff. So that it ended up being that. It was actually a moose that I shot, and a pig that I slaughtered. So it was animals that I could tell a story about as I was feeding them, so I kind of joked with everybody there. I was like, well, that moose was a cranky old bitch, and that pulled pork you're eating, her name was Elsa.
That's interesting. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, that was fun. But the guy who got married, he's got this business, the Wild Hog Hunters.
Okay.
In southern Sweden, in Karlskrona. And it was a business his dad started, and now he runs it together with some of his siblings. It's it's an outfitter. It's a guide service for people who want to come down and go wild boar hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've got dogs that can do it. They've got a bunch of, I think like 14 or 15 different feed stations that they monitor, and with cameras and, filling up the feed bins and things like that. And it's just this really nice system that they've got. Really nice setup, beautiful, beautiful area, and just a ton of game. It's ridiculous.
Really?
Oh, it's ridiculous. So
they have like Instagram or something I can check out.
Yeah, I'll put a link to their Instagram in the notes. They're a funny group of guys. One of the brothers is probably 6'5" with this great big ZZ Top beard, and has like 7,000 followers on TikTok. Like it's he's just this funny, quirky guy. First time I met him, he had Hello Kitty headphones on, just like totally marching to the beat of his own drummer. They're funny. But when I was down there, I had a few minutes one of the evenings, and I went out. There was a farmer that's having some problem with some pigs. So we went out there and snuck in. And as we were sneaking in, I could see that a couple of pigs ran across the field. But we settled in and waited, and we could hear them on the outside of the field.
Mm-hmm.
And they, kind of finally came back where we were starting to feel pretty good about it, that something's going to happen here in a second. And, getting settled in, got the scope all set up, dialed in, just waiting for them to step out. And suddenly right behind me, I hear this alarm bark that roe deer do.
Uh-huh. Uh-oh.
And turn around, big roe deer buck standing not that far from us, staring right at us, letting the entire neighborhood know
busted
that we are right there. And I mean, that's like the thing with this place is there's so much game that it's like stalking one animal out of an elk herd. Yeah. It's like you don't need to be focused on just that animal. You need to be aware of what every other animal around you is doing. Yeah. And that's what's crazy about this place. It's like you've got to watch for deer, you've got to watch for rabbits, because chances are if you see something you want to stalk, you're going to meet something else on the way in.
Yeah.
So
that sounds like a fantastic place to go.
Oh, maybe it's a cool place.
Get a chance to get over the pond.
Oh, if you ever do, I'll definitely take you down there. You'd get a kick out of Tim and Ted. They're the brothers. They're funny. They're good guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might take Mike down there just because I know I can go down there before the seasons really get rolling, and at least just, if nothing else, fill his nose with rabbit scent for a few days. And, almost certainly, definitely get some sight chases going with him, which I think would be really positive for him. And they've got some, they've got the hare down there, but they've also got just like standard cottontail type rabbits. And a sight chase, especially for a beagle pup on a cottontail, is going to be a lot more fun than, seeing a jack, or seeing a snowshoe hare that just blows out of there at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how it is there, but like around here, we've always it's always come extremely easy to get a beagle started on a rabbit. Now the fine tuning and getting on what you really want them is work, but to get a dog treated tends to take a lot more work around here than it seems like getting a beagle pup to just start busting after a rabbit. It's just like you show them one or two, like you're talking about sight racing around here, or just take them with, some other dogs and they fall in and want to do it. Now, they may not have all the tools to properly do it, but they're in core, and so much easier than a coon dog, seems like.
Yeah.
So
I would agree. I hope that I'm going to find that that's the case, because like with the foxes, what I ended up having to do with a lot of with mine is that, there's enough game here and enough stuff going on that it can, I don't want them running roe deer. So a lot of times what I would do is I would wait until that first snow and then start walking tracks. Find something that looked promising, drop down on it and show a lot of interest in it myself, and then walk the track until the dog started picking up on the fact that we're not just walking some random place, that the point of what we're doing right now is to follow this track. And, worst comes to worst, I'll do that with Mike, wait until that first snow and then start hitting hare and roe deer tracks hard. Yeah. Until that sort of light bulb goes off for him. Because the hare are going to be a little bit different than the rabbits as well. And that in the terrain that they're going to be in and where they're going to be eating and things like that. It's not necessarily, sight chases are a little harder to come by here. But I'm getting a beagle started is totally new to me. So it's going to be, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I'll be excited to see how I finally, what finally works for him in terms of like what triggers that light bulb moment for him.
Oh yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I've been following on your Facebook and Instagram, the pictures and stuff you put up. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Definitely a cute bugger.
Oh my gosh. Beagles are ridiculous. Beagles are ridiculous. They're like baby seals. They're just like great big, great big baby eyes. And so ridiculously cute. He's
like I said on the other podcast we did, I just have such a huge soft spot for beagles because growing up with them, I mean, that was some of my first dog memories was dad having 2 or 3 litters at a time, and so beagles
That's right.
Beagles feel like home to me.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Have you thought any more about maybe grabbing a beagle or two?
Yeah, surprisingly, I've had probably 4 or 5 people since that last podcast me and you did together reached out and said, "Hey, I'm in Kentucky or I'm in Virginia, and we got this line, and you get ready, you give us a call. We'll hook you up with a pup or whatever, So I had a lot of people reach out, and I had a lot of people ask me, "When have you got it yet?" And I've made no moves.
Yeah.
I figure I probably should, if I'm gonna do it this year. I probably should make that move, in July, August. But if I do make a move this year, I'll probably do it right before season, last minute, like you shouldn't do.
I feel like, what I feel like doing tomorrow? Rabbit hunting.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a beagle tomorrow.
Let's see who's got a beagle floating around. Yeah, I do that kind of stuff all the time. I'll be like, I probably should have started doing this 6 months ago, but I'm going to start it today.
Yeah.
2 days before I need it. But yeah, that's cool. It'd be interesting to hear what you thought about it if you got into it again.
I definitely will. I just don't know when I'm going to pull that trigger.
Yeah, because you've still got Hive and stuff, and your own, your business, and life sounds like it's still pretty busy for you.
Yeah. Like I said before, I can easily find 10 acres, 15 acres, to go rabbit hunt on. Right. Finding land. Actually, it's funny. Today, I was pricing a job down the county south of me, and I was like a mile from this place where I used to do a ton of coon. And a lot of my videos was done on this 100-acre piece of property.
Yep.
And we lost access to it, a year or 2 ago. And I thought, well, I'm just going to ride by and see what that place looks like. I went by there, and that thing is almost a hayfield. I mean, they've cut every single tree on it, harvested every bit of it. So it's kind of sad to see all the memories. The property's gone for good.
Yeah, that's too bad.
It's getting like that everywhere here.
That's what I hear, man. That's it's getting harder and harder to find those big areas that, at least on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it's still possible to find them out in those big wood lots and wood places like that over in Oregon, Washington, places like that are out in the desert. But still, it's like seems like it's hard to find enough elbow room to run a hound. Who would have ever thought that would have been the case in the U.S.?
Yeah. And, one thing that shocked me, I found out recently, we talked about the last time that they're wanting to open up some of these bear sanctuaries for the bear hunters,
yep.
Locally. And I just, not being a bear hunter, I'm just assuming, like, that sounds like a good idea, And I've since then bumped into several bear hunters since me and you last talked. And I don't know hardly a single one of them that are for it. And I said, that don't make sense to me. Explain. And they said that this was tried somewhere else. I don't know if this state or somewhere else. But basically, it was tried, and a bunch of guys with low morals went in there and really, wiped the place out. And the hand ties kind of baited them with allowing that legislation to go through, hoping they would do that, so then they could kind of come in and basically take it from them for good,
Yeah.
So all the bear hunters I know love having those sanctuaries, and it's a reproduction ground, a safe place for the resource to keep flourishing, and what travels outside of it is fair game. So
sure,
that's a new development for me. I hadn't thought of it that way, but like I said, I'm not a bear hunter with hounds. So
right,
but that's interesting.
That is really interesting. It's I think people underestimate houndsmen. Especially hunters in general, but especially houndsmen. There's still this sort of, Disney-esque
Fox and the Hound. That was the worst.
Right. You got this crotchety old man with terrible grammar and, accidentally shoots himself more often than he shoots anything else, trucks barely running, dogs living out in overturned barrels are underneath the broken down tractor, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they're not painting a very good picture, but unfortunately, like it's stuff like that. That's kind of, it's like when people think about somebody who runs hounds, if they don't know anything about houndsmen and how sort of varied and sort of remarkably unique, remarkably widespread we are, it's like people think that it's just, you got that kind of, I don't even remember what that guy's name was in that film.
I don't remember either, but I picture him shores the world. Yeah.
Right. But you've got like the Beverly Hillbillies, sort of picture of it,
Yeah. And see, I remember watching it as a kid, and growing up a family houndsman. I'm like, that's not how we treat our dogs. That's not
right.
That's not right. That's not accurate.
Right. Right. But unfortunately, ultimately, every group is going to have that person that fits into the negative stereotypes of the group.
Mm-hmm.
And, they, especially in today's world of social media and everything is documented, it seems like, that low hanging fruit can really spoil a lot for us. You got those couple bozos that go out there and blow a bunch of stuff away. They might be the 0.1% of the population of houndsmen that would go and do something like that, but still, they've just done a lot of damage to us.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was very interesting. We're talking with those bear hunters is how the antis have baited this. They've used this tactic before and found it to be efficient. And they're just, they're playing a game of chess here. And some of these people, even like myself, when I heard about it, I was playing a game of checkers there. They're just looking so far into the future, trying to set traps for the houndsman and set things into play to where, you mess up one time, we can take this away from you for good, and I never even thought of it that way.
Right.
These guys were filling me in on it. And it was like, wow, we were up against, some pretty stiff, opposition here that's just really thinking down the road farther. I think a lot of us do.
I think so too. They're playing the long game in terms of, long term. They want this to end, and they've got, this sort of everything from, big crazy things that some of them do to these really sort of, it's almost a little scary how deliberate, slow burn some of this stuff is. It's like, well, we do this now, and 10 years from now, it's going to come back and bite them.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's hard to compete with somebody that's willing to dedicate 10 years of their lives to messing with you,
And they have the funds to fund it for 10 years. The money behind this stuff is ridiculous. So, I mean, that's where you talk about the social media thing. I've always preached on that. And, I know you and others have to. You just got to really be careful what you do on social media when it comes to this hunting stuff. And I'm all for sharing pictures and videos with your buddy through private messenger or something. But, I keep seeing these people post some of this stuff. I'm like, man, it's cool. Don't get me wrong, but man, there's just my eyes that are seeing this that don't need to see it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that people who've listened to the podcast are going to be tired of hearing me say it. In fact, I'm betting most of them are saying it out loud to themselves right now, just in anticipation of me going ahead and saying it. But when they come for us, when the antis come for us, the ammunition they will use will be ammunition that we gave them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They're going to shoot us. They're going to kill us with our own pictures and our own videos and our own crap that we posted on Facebook and Instagram. And do you have the right to do that? Absolutely, you do. But is it smart? I don't think so. And that's the distinction that I think a lot of people don't get. Is, do you have the right? Yes. It is your right as an American to do those things. But
that's where you get down to, we're playing checkers, they're playing chess.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's, if all of the antis broke into people's dog yards in the middle of the night and tried to steal the dogs, they wouldn't get anywhere. It would be, but it's the smart ones. It's the smart ones that are going to come for us. And unfortunately, they're going to use all they're going to need to kill us is going to come from the dumbest ones of us.
Yep.
And that's a little scary. Because there's a lot of really, really smart houndsmen out there. But, just like any other group of people, you're going to have some real dumb ones in there too.
Yeah. Yeah. You see you guys doing some of this stuff, and as well as there's so many podcasts out now, Hounds podcasts, and we're all preaching that part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know a single person out there in this Hound social media world. You post what you want. Everybody's the same of mind on that. And you still have these guys doing it. So now it's got to be the point where it's not ignorance of it. They know that it's ammunition. They're just selfishness at this point, unless it's a young kid or something, but you know what I'm talking about.
I definitely know what you're talking about. Yeah. Cause I know content creators that will, who will post something that it, still shines a very positive light on the lifestyle. And, and then, I'll talk to them later and be like, and they will, they'll be perfectly honest and say, hey, I had to edit that a lot to avoid, a few things.
Yeah.
Just because out of context, if you took that 3 seconds of that video and plopped it down out of context, that could look bad.
Yeah. Yeah. We, last year and a half or so, the hunting videos we were putting up, I even from the raccoon leaving the tree branch, it was cut, and I used to at least show it hit the ground. First I was showing everything. Then it was like, all right, let's cut out the dog when it gets to it, show it falling. And then it's like, let's cut that out. Now I'm even fearful of holding it up at the tailgate at the end,
right.
Just because the cancel culture is crazy. And then two, you don't want to give anybody no ammunition, but you also don't want to shy away from what it's all about,
Sure.
For harvesting fur, there's nothing wrong with it. But, you don't know how far that one little innocent act will take it to. So it's always a fine line, but
it is. And that's something that's, I think important to point out too, that, we don't want to pretend that we're doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
We should be proud of what we're doing. That's
right.
But at the same time, you don't want to go out and pretend you're just walking, going for an evening stroll with Fluffy. That's not what we're doing. But at the same time, I don't think that it is necessary to, sort of the guts and glory either. I think there's got to be a balance there, and I don't say that I do it the right way. I don't, but one thing that I've started to do is I won't post pictures of the animals that I shot when I shot them or hanging or anything like that. But what I will do is I'll post pictures of what I've made.
Yeah.
From those animals.
Yeah.
So I'll post pictures of food. Everybody loves food, and especially on social media, it's so in to post pictures of your food. But then, it's sort of it's a backdoor way to get people's attention and something positive. They can look at it and be like, oh, that looks really good. And then, maybe realize that, oh, this is a moose taken for dogs in Norway, or this is a roe deer taken for dogs, or this is hare taken for dogs, and, might give them a little bit of a different perspective instead of, the guy and the dog both covered in blood and mud, holding, some raggedy looking, deal. You and I both know the amount of time and effort it went to getting to that point, and can appreciate that, geez. Yep. But your average Joe. Yeah, I was so proud. I mean, and I'll take that picture. I'm not saying that I'm not out there taking the grip and grin myself. I absolutely am. I absolutely am. but I'm going to send that on private messenger, like there's a bunch of my buddies that are going to get that picture, but it's going to be private. I'm not going to send it where people who I don't want, who I don't want to have to interact with can see it.
Yeah. And too, I think also content creators like yourself, myself, other guys we know and stuff, as you start getting a following, you got people following all your stuff, you're even more responsible. You should be even more responsible with what you post. Because a guy that's got 500 friends on Facebook, more than likely, not a lot of eyes are going to see it. Not throwing off on anything, but
sure,
that's just the nature of it. So you see a couple of guys out there that have an influence, and they're just putting some stuff up there that really they shouldn't be. But
yep,
free country too.
Yeah, it's a free country, and I mean that's I'll always appreciate that they have the right to do it, but it's like I have the right to eat nothing but candy all day every day. It doesn't mean that it's a smart thing to do,
Yeah, with great influence. It's like that Spider-Man, the great power, but great influence. You do need to be more responsible with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. What was that saying? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
There we go.
We'll adapt it with great influence, social media influence.
That's right.
Yeah.
Large number of followers equals more responsibility. Yeah. No, it's
right.
It's something that I harp a lot on. And I'm sure people are tired of hearing me talk about it, but it is something that worries me, because when I see pictures of houndsmen popping up on hounds and houndsmen popping up on these anti sites, it's most of the time it's pictures I've already seen.
Yeah.
And I've thought, oh man.
Yeah. We got something going on here. I live south of the city of Asheville, North Carolina. And if you Google Asheville, you're going to find Asheville is everything opposite of what me and any other good old boy is. It's that kind of city.
Okay.
And an organization, I'm not even going to put their name out there, because I don't even want nobody going and clicking on their stuff. But they're all the time posting these pictures of these bear that I think it's the same bear they pictured over and over, but it's like missing a foot. And they're talking about, they're trying to get a real end snaring bears.
Right.
Snaring a bear has not been legal in the state of North Carolina for as long as I know of. I mean, you cannot trap bear. And they assume that's what it is. Well, there was actually a study done. Some biologists with the state and a couple other people got together, and they did a study of course, for about 5 years. And they did find that there was like a very small percentage of bears that were missing one limb or foot or something around here. And what they found was 95% of those animals had been impacted by an automobile, and it had broke a leg or broke a foot.
Okay.
It wasn't a trap, but these people, they have such a Facebook following, and the hearts and minds tugging on the hearts of everybody to fall for Pooh Bear and his broke foot. They have pushed so far now that anytime there's ever anybody posts anything about a bear getting in garbage, what should I do about this? I'll just go for and run it off, or call the game warden, they'll trap it and haul it away.
Sure.
These people get involved, and it's just, we moved in their land and they're blah, blah, blah. And, they have such a massive influence, and they're such a small group. And I'm just like, you can't make one comment about, you always have that one guy, come bear season, you give me a call,
right.
And the guy just gets dogpiled by these people, like, don't put yourself out there, buddy,
Right. It's like, send that person a private message and, keep your weekend plans.
Yeah.
It's, it gets ridiculous sometimes, but one of the things that I kind of try to remind myself is, the people who are really active trying to ruin, the really active antis. Sometimes it seems like there's a lot of them, and there's a few of them, but realistically, there are so many more hunters and houndsmen than there are active antis. What they're good at is marketing.
Yep.
So they'll get people to make those donations and things like that, just being like, oh, you love puppies, don't you? Well, of course I love puppies. Give us $5 and we'll protect puppies. Like, all right, well, heck, you can have $5. You know, but just in terms of numbers, the number of people who are actually out there busting their butts to wreck this for us is there's too many of them. Don't get me wrong. 2 of them is too many of them, but yeah, I find it reassuring that we're many, many more who are working really, really hard to maintain this lifestyle and preserve it, and protect it. So I think that times when it's stressing me out a little bit, I try to remember that that we've got people that are, you've got people, a few people out there that are kind of, some people just like to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
And, then you've got a bunch of other people who are trying to protect and preserve a lifestyle here that I think that's worth something.
Yeah. And, you say we outnumber them, and I totally agree with you. And that's where when it comes down to the brass tacks of it all, if Joe Blow down at the dog club don't run the dog you like or the truck you like, and you and him just don't get along, you're not going to sit down and eat breakfast together. But if it comes a time where you and him need to get together and go to the town meeting and voice your opinion, and y'all need to stand up together and voice that opinion. So, I hope and pray if it comes down to that, just houndsmen in general are able to do that, willing to do that.
I hope so too, and then there are times when I wonder a little bit about that. You mentioned earlier, there's a lot of hound podcasts right now, which I think is great in a lot of ways. It gives variety. Everybody who wants to listen to a podcast, at this point has probably a chance of finding something that they like to listen to.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's a lot of sniping going on between the different podcasts. A lot of people throwing shade at other podcasts, and I think that's really unfortunate, because we're creating this split, this divide where it's like, well, I'm a so-and-so podcast listener. Well, I'm a so-and-so podcast listener. And, in today's world where it doesn't take anything, it can be a difference in, difference in the brand of toothpaste you use. It's just like, that's enough for people to stop talking to each other and not work together anymore. And I think that it's just, I think it's something that I think is unfortunate. I see,
it's sad,
I see
really.
it is sad. I see some of these podcasts where they'll spend a lot of time, trying to make themselves legitimate by putting down all these other podcasts and, trying to, what they're doing is best and blah, blah, blah. And, what they're doing may very well be best, but they're missing the point, I think, in what we're doing ultimately.
The big picture of it all. Yeah.
The big picture of bringing people together.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the reasons that I really like the way the DU guys have done it, where they've got the feed and then they've got a bunch of different podcasts that hop on that same feed. Is, it's a bunch of people pulling in the same direction from way different backgrounds. And, people that I'd be interested to see what would happen if you got all of us in a room together. I don't think we'd all be buddies by the time we left that room. But at the same time, you can respect. You can respect that. Here's a voice that some people are going to listen to, and hope that and every voice that's out there promoting what we do in a good light is worth taking care of and worth promoting and building up ourselves. And it seems foolish to me, and I'll go that far and say it's foolish.
Yeah.
Go
ahead and finish.
To be, taking pot shots and sniping each other. We've got enough threats from the outside. We don't need to be, thinning out our own ranks from the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, if you look at a couple of points here, if you look at I don't know. Maybe there's anti-hunting podcasts. I don't know if there is or not. But if there was, I guarantee you there'd be 1,000 of them, because there's strength in numbers. And, if you click on, if you're Joe Blow down here at the gated golf course community and you just happen to hear about somebody who's a hound hunter, what is this? And you go to your podcast platform and you type in and you're just curious and 20 hound hunting podcasts pop up, you're like, oh, there's some legitimacy to this. What is this about? This is interesting.
Right.
Absolutely. But recently,
that's a really good point. Yeah.
I had a podcast. It's funny. I had a paranormal ghost hunting type podcast reach out to me. One of these scary stories. And so I was worried about honestly joining on with this, but I thought it was a good opportunity. One, to witness to people for Christ, and then two, tell people about hound hunting that don't know nothing about it, And I went on there and done that, and I was talking on the podcast, and I told the guy, I said, man, there's dogs out here now that win $100,000 coon hunting. And he's like, what, really? And I've got so much positive feedback from people that had no clue anything about this.
That's really cool.
The houndsman was the character that we were talking about in The Fox and the Hound to them. They had no clue that you could win a brand new truck with a coon dog, or you could win $100,000, or, just what the legitimacy of it was. So, these people are reaching out now, and they're going on YouTube and they're seeing all these other YouTube coon hunting channels. Maybe they're looking at the podcast here. So the more you have and the better everybody gets along, the better it's going to make it is for everybody.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
And when it comes down to it, another prong of this is I love to learn about stuff with hounds I had no clue about, like yours, the Norway stuff, Brett Vaughn. That's so far out of my world. Sure. I can't possibly even imagine how it is. I have to listen to you guys to learn about it. And I get intrigued the more and more I learn. And so, and then there's a group of guys out there in New Mexico that are hunting the same way as Brett is that didn't have a voice, and now they do. Right. There was guys in your area that was doing the same thing you're doing, didn't have a voice, and now they do. There's a coon hunting voice podcast. There's a, bear hunting podcast now. I mean, everybody's got a place, but there's places you can go learn stuff that you didn't know too. So that's the second prong to this. And the third one, that I've always thought, I used to be like a diehard Ford man when I was a kid because my dad drove Fords, my grandpa drove Fords. Right. When it boiled down to it, when it was time to get a new truck, whoever made the best one at that time, that's who I went with. Right. And I spent a lot of windshield time today in my truck. And I went through 2 or 3 of my normal, podcasts I listened to. Then I just started diving around, and I found 2 or 3 that I'd never even, I'd heard of a couple I hadn't listened to. And I'm like, man, there's a big world out there. It's pretty cool to find all this stuff.
Yeah, that is really cool.
So to narrow it down and try to, like you were saying, snipe things or whatever, it's, that's foolish to me. But
yeah, I think that it is, and it's, I think ultimately it's, even though the intentions are good, the intentions are to be the authority on hound hunting or whatever. I think the way they go about it, some of these podcasts, I mean, it's some competitions and breed days and things like that. I see it kind of going back and forth, sniping at each other. We don't need more dividing us. We don't need more threats to our existence, especially not shooting ourselves in the foot by splitting our own, dividing our own house.
Yeah. There may become a time when you need that person for someone. And if you had spat on them on social media or something and you need them, they might not be there for you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, why would, yeah, no, exactly. And
this trickles down all the way out of the podcast thing, all the way down to the deer club that you're part of or your coon club,
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to keep these relationships intact and treat everybody with respect because, we're going to all need each other in this one day. One day, this fight between the antis and the hound hunters is going to get very serious. Mm-hmm. And that could be a year from now or 20 years from now. But I definitely feel it's, sooner than later. So
absolutely. And I hope that when that day comes that, we're not all going to be sitting in our corner with our feelings hurt, not wanting to come out and, not wanting to pull in the same direction because, well, that guy that guy did this to me, or that guy said this about me and my stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Or this guy made fun of me or whatever. And it's like, I would, I would hope that people keep the big perspective here.
That's right. Chess, not checkers.
That's right. Chess, not checkers. Oh God. Well, I think that's a good note to end on here. I really appreciate you jumping on this so fast.
Yeah, man.
Nick, it was good to talk to you again. It's been a little while, and it's it's always fun to have you on and talk to you. And I appreciate the how quick you jumped on here.
Yeah, man. Anytime I can be on here, as long as you don't get too many people telling you, hey, get that dude off here, I'm available. So you let me know.
I don't listen to those people anyway.
Also, there's a pile of them.
Yeah. Well, good, man. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Man, I love that sound.